Hi guys, I need to apologize for my late post. I scratched my cornea earlier this week and have been dealing with a bloodshot eye that has been oozing. So today has been the first day that I didn't look like a hot mess with it being all red and puffy. So I do apologize again for the late post. Today we're going to talk about the exceptionalities that we will be blessed with in our classrooms. The first one I'm going to talk about is intellectual disability. These students have significantly below average intelligence, meaning their IQ is below 70. These guys have deficits in adaptive behavior, meaning they're not going to come in your classroom and remember your rules daily. They're going to need a lot of guidance. These students have difficulties in comprehension and with life functions. They're going to need help with the simplest tasks, such as, going to the restroom, brushing their teeth, washing their hands. In our school district, we have one-on-one paras with these students that help them with these daily tasks. But I urge you as a teacher, don't let that shy you away from stepping in there and helping them out and giving them those friendly reminders. Um, these kiddos they love to please you. They love to make you smile. They're sweet and loving. So as a teacher, we need to use concrete examples with them, have a lot of patience, break down the material for them, and use manipulatives in the classroom and engaging resources. A lot of hands-on seems to work at the best. The second one we're going to talk about is communication. And to me, communication is not just how you verbally communicate, but how you receive the communication as well. Like hearing it. So the first one I'm going to talk about is, on the hearing part of communication. And some of your students are going to struggle with the inability to comprehend the verbal language, meaning they might have a hearing loss. And this hearing loss deals with both pitch and loudness greater than 90 decibels. So even if they're wearing hearing aids or you're using amplification, these students still may struggle. Some things that we can use in the classroom is the text-to-speech assistive technology, as well as maybe providing note takers in class. Something that you'll find in your school districts is you struggle to have money for everything. And so text-to-speech technologies cost money, and you may or may not have that money, whereas providing a class note taker, if you could have another student that's willing to have their notes copied after class for the student, that doesn't cost a thing. So those are some different things we need to think about. So on the verbal end of communication, these kiddos may have a stuttering problem, or this may not be their first language, that they are struggling to articulate the words in the right way, or they may have a voice impairment, which means these kiddos are going to struggle with class presentations. If they're struggling to communicate verbally, how do you expect them to get up in front of a class and be able to present something? So that's where we could use, the text to speech, if it's available to you, to where they can still get up there and present, but they don't build that anxiety of having to get up and try to speak their presentation. This disorder with communication is identified at a very early age. And with research, it's shown that with early intervention, these kiddos have shown great improvement. So as a teacher, we need to work together with the speech and language pathologists, be on a good rapport with them, communicate with them so that we know what these students are working on in speech, that we can try to adapt that to our lesson and into our classroom, to where these kiddos don't realize that they're working on their speech projects or assignments, in the classroom. The next one we're going to talk about is hearing loss. Hearing loss is the impairment of hearing, whether it's a permanent hearing loss or a fluctuating hearing loss. So it does not mean that these students are deaf. It means that they have trouble hearing you. They not only have trouble hearing, but they have trouble with the vocabulary, hearing every, the grammars that you're talking about. Um, they're going to struggle listening to lectures, and they may not have heard what you said. You might think that they're goofing off in class when they might just not hear what you're saying. So as a teacher, we need to work on our articulation while we're lecturing in class, learn some sign language. Maybe these students have an interpreter for them. Maybe they don't. Um, Again, provide note takers and use that assistive technology if available. Be animated when we're lecturing in class. Speaking with our hands. I'm a big hand speaker, so I'm trying to keep my hands down. Um, and use hand signals with these students so that you understand, are they understanding what you're saying? Are they having difficulties? So maybe you and the student can work out a hand signal with, I'm understanding and I'm not understanding. So the next one we're going to talk about is attention and hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD. These kiddos struggle to control their activity level and reactions to what's going on around them. So where, other students may not, a joke in class, they might giggle at a little bit. This might turn this kid, a huge distraction to this kid telling a simple joke in class. Um, with these kiddos, this disorder emerges early in childhood, but it can last through adolescence and into adulthood. This the students with this disorder, they struggle with their lack of concentration. It is you might think it's the simplest thing to sit and listen to you for a few minutes read, and while you're up there reading, these students might see something on the wall or something that gets them distracted, and now they have totally zoned out from what you're saying. Um, so they often daze off in class. As a teacher, we need to provide much needed modifications and teach to the students' strengths. If you know that they can listen better when they're bouncing on an exercise ball, by all means, let them bring that exercise ball in and bounce while you're lecturing. Another thing we can do is not have a lot of stuff on their worksheets and quizzes to where it's distracting, not have a lot of pictures and stuff, make it very simple. And the same with our classrooms, not have so many things up on the walls that are going to distract them. The next one we're going to talk about is, emotional and behavior disorders. These kiddos are unable to learn due to constant behavior problems. These kiddos can struggle with bipolar, being depressed, being anxious, and maybe they have some other psychological problems going on. These guys anger very easily. They're easily withdrawn and very antisocial. We need to have behavior intervention plans in place for this student or these students, excuse me. And these guys are going to be the most difficult to teach, but if we can be one step ahead and be prepared and have a plan of action in place, that is, that will mean the world in helping them grow, is if we know what we're dealing with and how we can handle it. The next one we're going to talk about is traumatic brain injury. This happens when an injury to the brain occurs from an external physical force. It can result in either partial or total functional disability with these students. These students are going to struggle with memory difficulties and concentration problems. Even with all the research, we don't know how traumatic brain injury will affect cognitive process. Every traumatic brain injury is different. Like one of the videos that we watched, it's like a fingerprint. Every traumatic brain injury is different. So we need to modify these students' work and, give them some extra time. Again, don't have a lot of stuff on their quizzes and worksheets that are going to distract them. The next one we're going to talk about is visual impairments. These guys have an impairment with vision, even with corrections such as glasses, that will affect the student's performance. Not only are they going to have difficulty reading, but they might have difficulty even using technology, and they might have a range of eye conditions. Um, like I said, even with glasses, they're going to still have some visual defects, such as identifying letters and differentiating them. We need to use assistive technology if available, and one of those being large print books. Nowadays, it's a lot easier to find large print books. So trying to find different technology and resources that we can use with these students. The next one we're going to talk about is learning disabilities. These guys, this is not indicative of a low IQ. This is regarded as a group of disorders that affect a student's ability to learn at a regular pace. They might have difficulty receiving, processing, and communicating their information. So these students are going to work a lot with one-on-one therapies to work on their comprehension, maybe reading comprehension, math comprehension, and work with a specialized teacher, or certified teacher that can help them in these areas. We need to utilize the assistive technology if available, and we need to monitor their behavior, so we see where they're struggling in, what they're having issues in, and how we can maybe adapt or modify in that area. Using a multisensory approach, it would be a great idea. They're not going to learn just from note taking and lecturing. They might need some hands-on to understand, fractions or subtraction, addition, having that 2 blocks plus 3 blocks is 5 blocks. So these kiddos may participate in special education classes or self-paced learning environments. Like in our school district, these kiddos get pulled out of class to work one-on-one with a specialized teacher in math or in reading with, what they're struggling in. The next one we're going to talk about is autism. This is a developmental disability that affects significantly their verbal and nonverbal communications and social interactions. Usually this is evident before age 3. Teaching is going to be very difficult because of their wide range of characteristics. These students have unusual fixations, but they crave a structural routine. They're going to communicate in their own unique way. As a teacher, we need to give instructions one step at a time, use various cues with them, give clear directions and routines and procedures when we teach. One thing that I've noticed in our school district is teachers are kind of afraid on what to do, how to engage these students. Just ask. As a special ed para, that's what I struggle with, is when I see a teacher not engage with these students. So just ask, what can I do? What does this student like? Just to give them some things that help them integrate in the classroom. The last one we're going to talk about is gifted and talented. These guys demonstrate the potential abilities of superior intellectual, creative, or specific academic capabilities. That means they need differentiated instruction or service because they accelerate or advance in their grade levels. They show academic and emotional traits that may be intense at times just because they are so advanced, and they're going to be much more mature than some of their